This time, I would like to speak about the life of the foundress of Tenrikyo, Oyasama Miki Nakayama. In Tenrikyo, the foundress is respectfully called Oyasama. Today, I would like to share what kind of life she lived and what kind of person she was, while introducing a number of specific episodes along the way. Oyasama was born in 1798, toward the end of the Edo period, in a village that corresponds to present-day San Maiden, Tenri City, Nara Prefecture, as the eldest daughter of the Megawa family. From early childhood, she was a child who would give snacks to others and lovingly take care of neighborhood children. Raised in a household devoted to faith, she is said to have grown up deeply religious. At the age of 13, she married into the Nakayama family. The Nakayama residence stood at what is now the central sacred site of Tenrikyo, the location of the Tenrikyo Church headquarters in Tenri City, Nara Prefecture. After entering the Nakayama family, she was known as an excellent and devoted wife. In time, she was blessed with children, and the family lived in prosperity, wanting for nothing. Up to this point, she lived the life of an ordinary farmer's wife. However, at the age of 41, God came to dwell within her. In 1838, when she was 41, her son Shuji had been suffering severe leg pain for an entire year. Following the customs of the time, the family repeatedly requested prayers, yet the pain would return. When they once again called for a ritual healer, the appointed medium was unable to come. In her place, Oyasama held the sacred wand and stood at the ritual stand. And at that moment, God entered into her. Through her, God declared that God had descended this time to save all people throughout the world. From that time on, in accordance with the will of God, and guided by the divine teaching that one must descend fully into poverty, because without doing so, one cannot truly understand the suffering of those in hardship. Oyasama began giving away all the household belongings from her home to others. Poor people came to rely on Oyasama and gathered around her with deep affection. However, the Nakayama family had once been a wealthy farming household, village leaders who employed many workers, yet they gradually fell into poverty. People began to say that something strange had possessed her, and public criticism grew increasingly severe. Relatives gradually turned away from the family, and neighbors whispered that she was possessed by a fox, mocking and ridiculing them day after day. Based on the divine intention that people cannot truly be saved while living behind grand gates and formal entrances, she removed the symbols of the family's social status, sold the rice fields they owned, and gave away both money and possessions one after another, eventually descending into a life of extreme poverty. Amid these days of poverty and ridicule, 15 years passed. In 1853, when Oyasama was 56 years old, her husband Zenbei passed away at the age of 66. It is said that the 10 years following her 56th year were an especially difficult period of her path. There were many days when there was no rice to cook for the next morning, and the family often struggled to find food. One particular day is remembered as follows.
After breakfast, the foundress begins to weave. Her 35-year-old son prepares for work in the fields, puts on his kimono, and goes peddling in town. The foundress and her 19-year-old daughter weave and sew from morning until night. They make kimonos and live a humble life. Even in the cold, they do not light a fire. Beggars would often come to their door. Without hesitation, she covers him with a handmade kimono and gives him rice. In the evening, the son returns home. Dinner is rice and a few vegetables. After the meal, she says, there will be no rice for tomorrow. Even the little they earn is given to the poor, leaving barely enough to eat. The next day, they earn a few coins again, just to make it through. Even at night, the foundress keeps weaving. Under the moonlight, she weaves past midnight, making nearly twice the usual amount, and quietly says, "See how much I made."
Her youngest daughter told her, "We have no rice to cook tomorrow." Oyasama then taught that in this world, there are people who, even with mountains of food piled beside their pillows, cannot eat, and who suffer because even water will not pass their throats. When we think of them, she said, how blessed we are when we drink water. It tastes of water, itself a blessing graciously provided by God the Parent. It is said that she encouraged them by saying, in essence, that no matter how difficult their circumstances might be, they should not call their lives miserable, and that she would never let the children fall to the point of begging. Strengthened by these words, the children lifted their hearts, which had been close to collapsing, and continued to follow Oyasama. It is said that this life of poverty continued. for nearly 25 to 30 years after the founding of the faith. Amid these developments, she gradually began to grant divine protection that helped women experience smoother childbirth. She also brought healing to many others, and people suffering from various illnesses, some even abandoned by their doctors, heard the rumors about Oyasama and began visiting her in increasing numbers. Neighbors slowly came to realize that Oyasama was no ordinary person, as one after another received remarkable blessings. Word spread in all directions that there was a living deity in the village of Shoyashiki. Some people even began bringing offerings of rice in gratitude, visiting for the first time to express their thanks. It is said that such visits of gratitude began roughly 20 years after God had taken residence in Oyasama, years during which she had descended into complete poverty, endured misunderstanding from those around her, and walked a path marked by ridicule and criticism. In 1874, when Oyasama was 77 years old, she began to wear red garments. Descriptions of her daily appearance tell of how those who met the elderly, Oyasama felt something beyond words. An indescribable sacred presence joined with a profound gentleness that quietly moved their hearts, while at the same time giving them a warm sense of familiarity. She was of medium build and somewhat tall, always maintaining a graceful and refined posture. Her face was slightly long, her complexion fair and healthy, her nose well-defined, and her small mouth conveyed both dignity and kindness. Her ever-smiling expression carried a noble serenity that many found deeply moving. As she grew older, her hair gradually turned white until it became completely snow-white. It was always carefully arranged and neatly tied, never once appearing disordered. She dressed entirely in red kimono, red sash, and red tabi socks. Her gaze was clear and refreshing, bright with vitality. Even in advanced age, her legs and hips remained strong. Her back did not bend, and those who saw her walk often remarked on how light and swift her steps appeared. The deity who entered into Oyasama was the parent god of humanity, the very God who created all human beings. Many stories have been passed down describing Oyasama's daily life, filled with the deep kindness and gentle words of a true parent caring for her children. Here are a few accounts that illustrate how she treated those who came to her with devotion. In 1863, when Masui Kiku was 39 years old, she was troubled by her husband's illness. She prayed at many shrines, yet his condition did not improve, and she grew increasingly distressed. Hearing rumors about Oyasama, she finally came to meet her. When she arrived, Oyasama welcomed her warmly, speaking as though she had long been waiting for her beloved child to return from a distant journey. With a gentle smile and tender words, she received Kiku with deep affection. Hearing those words, Kiku felt a powerful realization arise within her. This is what a true parent is. An indescribable sense of closeness filled her heart, and she was deeply moved with gratitude and emotion. Another story tells of an event in the late autumn of 1881. A man named Tosa Unosuke, who had been saved from a maritime disaster, came to express his gratitude. After offering thanks, he excitedly recounted the details of the incident to senior followers at the residence. One of them asked whether the accident had occurred at a certain date and time, accurately identifying the very day of the disaster. The senior follower then explained that on that same day, Oyasama had opened the north-facing sliding doors of her room, stood facing north, and for some time called out as if inviting someone from afar. At the time, it had seemed mysterious. But hearing Unosuke's story made the meaning clear. Deeply moved by this, Unosuke could no longer contain his emotion. He went before Oyasama and expressed heartfelt thanks for the life that had been spared, bowing deeply until his forehead touched the tatami floor. His voice trembled and his eyes filled with tears, making it difficult even to look upon her face. Oyasama gently comforted him, saying that he had been brought back safely from a dangerous place, and offered warm words of reassurance. Such stories have been passed down as examples of her boundless parental compassion. Beginning in 1874, when Oyasama was 77 years old, she would voluntarily step into even greater hardship. At the time, the Meiji government strongly promoted state Shinto, and severe pressure was placed on other religious movements. Because gatherings of followers were viewed as religious activity, the police repeatedly arrested Oyasama as the supposed leader and confined her in detention facilities. Each detention lasted about 10 days. Yet these arrests were repeated again and again, eventually totaling 18 times. Despite her advanced age, she was taken into custody in the heat of summer and in the cold of winter. Even so, whenever the police summoned her, it is said that she went without hesitation, setting out calmly and willingly. One account describes an incident that took place during a confinement in the Nara detention facility, where Oyasama was held from March 24th to April 5th, 1884. A follower, Koda Chuzaburo, was confined together with her for 10 days. During that time, a guard ordered him to clean the toilets. After finishing the task and returning, Oyasama asked him how he felt about being brought there and made to clean such an unpleasant place. He replied that whatever he was asked to do, if he regarded it as work entrusted by God, he felt grateful to perform it. Oyasama then gently taught that when even difficult or unpleasant tasks are accepted with gratitude, the sincerity of that attitude reaches heaven, and God receives it and transforms it into something good. But if one performs even the hardest work while feeling resentment or dissatisfaction, the sincerity that reaches heaven becomes one of complaint instead. Such stories from her time in detention show how consistently she maintained a bright and positive heart, encouraging others to walk their path with gratitude regardless of circumstances. The level of hardship she endured during those years was truly extraordinary. In February of 1896, during the severe cold of winter, Oyasama, then 89 years old, experienced her final detention. In what was said to be the harshest cold in 30 years, she was made to sit on a cold wooden floor and was held there for 12 days. The detention space, facing the street and enclosed only by wooden bars, left her fully visible to passers-by, as though she were being displayed in public. Oyasama's granddaughter Hisa was confined in the same room in order to care for the elderly Oyasama. Accounts preserved in the life of the foundress describe her condition during that time, noting that nothing she saw or heard seemed to trouble her in the least. One day, when she noticed a sweets vendor passing by, she asked Hisa to buy some of the sweets. When asked what they would be used for, she explained that a police officer nearby looked bored and sleepy, and she wished to give him something. Hisa replied that since they were inside a police detention facility, it would not be possible to purchase anything. Hearing this, Oyasama simply responded, "I see," and said nothing more. Even the police officers were, in her eyes, beloved children, each faithfully carrying out his duty. Without making any distinction, she continued to show the compassion of a parent toward all people. Commentators later wrote that through such moments she demonstrated that, no matter what circumstances one is placed in, there exists a path by which the heart can remain free, bright and untouched by adversity. A devoted follower who rushed to the scene, at the time of her release later, recounted what happened. Hearing that Oyasama would be released, he hurried to welcome her, only to find that, to shield her from the wind, she had been resting inside a storage space. Because she was too weak to stand or board a rickshaw on her own, he gently carried her on his back and helped her into the waiting vehicle. Such recollections have been passed down among the followers. About a year later, at the beginning of 1887, what would become the final Stome, the final communal prayer service held during her lifetime, was performed. As the service concluded at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Oyasama quietly passed from this world as if falling asleep. She was 90 years old. The leading disciples who had joyfully completed the service were deeply shocked, and many wept together. They had believed that performing the service would restore her strength, and she herself had often spoken of a natural lifespan of 115 years. Shortly afterward, through her close attendant Iburi Izo, a message was conveyed that God, out of deep love for the children of the world, had shortened the parent's life by 25 years in order to continue, saving people from that moment onward. Although her physical form would no longer be visible, her divine workings would continue just as before, now extending throughout the world to bring salvation. In time, the prayer for healing was entrusted widely to the followers, and many accounts spread of remarkable recoveries attributed to this sacred prayer. Several years later, another divine message was conveyed through Iburi Izo. If you do not follow the path of the divine model, there is no need for a divine model. There is no path but the path of the divine model. This teaching explains that Oyasama's 50 years of life after becoming the shrine of God served as a living example, a divine model, demonstrating the way human beings should live. Her life itself, lived fully in that spirit, came to embody the very heart of the teachings of Tenrikyo. In this presentation, we have highlighted only a few episodes from the life of Oyasama Nakayama Miki. There are many more detailed accounts, and those who wish to learn further are encouraged to explore the life of the foundress and the anecdotes of Oyasama. Thank you very much for watching.